Hi everyone, I'm Angie Spong and I'm putting together a series of projects for machine embroidery. To purchase the project, please go to my website at www.angies.co.nz, and you can also follow me on Facebook at Angie's Machine Embroidery. Hope you enjoyed this presentation. This is my tissue box cover with embroidery designs that go all over. The top opening is a cut work type design here, and the bottom edge, the scallops are all incorporated in the design to finish the edge as well. This one's for your sorbent tissue box. I've also done the designs for the Kleenex tissues as well, because those are slightly different sizing there. Now, when you purchase the project from my website, you will immediately get an email with attachments for your embroidery designs, instructions and patterns, and you will have chosen either A4 or letter size paper. Just double click on those PDF files to open them up in Adobe Acrobat, and then click on your print icon. Your print window will come up and the page scaling needs to be set to none, so use your down arrow here and select none, and then you can click OK, and this will make sure that your patterns are going to print out in actual size. I've now got everything together to start my project. The Adorn tissue box cover instructions, I've printed those out. The pattern pieces I've printed out, making sure they're in actual size. With your A4 or letter size paper, each section comes on a separate sheet, so we need to cut those out and then paste them together. For your fabric, you need a fat quarter or half a yard square. Cut out your fabric piece, cut out a piece of fusible batting and fuse that onto the back of your fabric, and you'll also need a lining fabric as well, the same size. Now we need to fold our fabric over and find the midway point there and rule a vertical line through here, and then rule a horizontal line through the center there. With your pattern, which is actual size, you can then mark the design centers with your fabric marking pen on there. I've also marked top at the top of my piece so I know which way up I'm sewing this. Then I have also hooped up my wash away. With this one, it's a medium weight, so I've used 2 layers. If you've got a heavyweight wash away, 1 layer will be sufficient there. Pop my hoop clips on. So now I'm ready to go to the machine and start embroidering. Here's the Adorn tissue box cover with all the embroidery designs completed. With a smaller hoop size, you would be doing that top design in a separate hooping right in the center of your fabric. With the larger hoop sizes, I've got the front and the top design combined, so it's done in one hooping. It's really easy to then attach the other designs to these because I've got the first 2 stitches of the designs as alignment stitches, and they will either meet up as the marker stitches that are in place or the corner of the previous design. So let's get started. I'm now over at my machine and ready to start embroidering. Because I already have my box made for the sorbent tissue box, I am going to make my Kleenex box its cover now. So I've transferred the Kleenex designs onto my USB embroidery stick, and I brought the first one up on my screen here. If you've got a hoop that's 240 or larger, the top design and the front design have been combined to make one less hooping. So that's the one I'm using here. From your pattern, you can see that the center for the 1 and 2 design is right here, which I've marked on my fabric. I've put the needle down in that position. Then I have lined up my vertical line with the little notches on the hoop here at the front, and at the back, and then I've just popped a little pin right close to the hoop in the front and the back here. Now I'm ready to start my basting, so I will just lift my needle up. I do have my machine all set up for embroidery, so I've got my first colour thread on, I've got my embroidery needle, embroidery foot in there, and I've also got my bobbin fill underneath. I've now done the basting around, which has affixed my fabric and batting and lining layers onto my wash away, and I'm ready to thread up the first colour, which is the shape stitching for the centre design. Just carry on and stitch your thread number 2 with the same colour thread. This is going to be the underlay stitching for your opening. At the end of thread colour 2, I'm now just going to carefully remove the hoop from the embroidery unit, and then I'm going to trim away the fabric from inside the opening there, being careful not to cut the wash away stabilizer at the back. I've cut the fabric out from the opening now, and I did find it easier to cut the top layer first and then cut the underneath layers separately. You do need a nice strong pair of scissors with a sharp point on them to cut as close to that stitching as possible, so you've got a nice clean edge. And you can see that the wash away is still intact underneath. When we put the hoop back into position, make sure that it clicks into position so that the next lot of stitching, which is your satin stitching around that opening, is going to stitch in the right place. So change your thread and off we go. I've carried on stitching the embroidery to the second to last colour, which is the underlay for the border design. Now it's stopped for me because now I need to trim away the fabric at the bottom edge so that the scallop is like a cut work edge. I'm going to unpick this basting line of stitching on the bottom and then trim this back to the underlay stitching. I've carefully trimmed the bottom edge of the fabric up close to the border underlay stitching line there and into the corners, and left the wash away intact underneath there. Now if you've taken your hoop out of the embroidery unit at all, make sure that you click that back into position so that the border stitching there is going to be in the right place. So we can set that up to sew now. That looks great. Now I'll take that out of the hoop and we'll hoop up with a smaller hoop size and start doing the back. Now we're ready to sew the back design. I unpicked the tacking from the first design we did and trimmed the wash away as close to the stitching as I could to get rid of the excess. The top part of the design here finishes with little corner stitches on either side. The first 2 stitches of the design we're about to sew has got alignment stitches that need to go into the corner of those 2 marker stitches left at the end. So we can go back across and just check that our needle is going into that corner there. Go forward a stitch and check that it's going in the right position there. You can see I've just pinned the fabric through onto the wash away at the back there to hold it steady. Now I'm ready to baste around the design.